And even if it's your wife and your carrier and everything like that, they don't really want her come. Still, I say, ladies and gentlemen, every month we meet like this. We normally meet on a Thursday, but Island Space is getting, it's a hot place now, and they bumped us out to the Thursday. And I had to go to the Wednesday this month, but there are ongoing parties. And every month we have a lecture that we think is very important for the community to hear. We have had the best of the best come here in the lecture series. In fact, I think I need to start to charge them to come on the lecture series, right? I think I need to start to charge them to come on the lecture series, right?
After this one.
After this one. Well, I want to thank each of you for coming out and being a part of it. We've been doing this now for, I believe, a year and a half. We've had Minister Bartlett, Minister Tofton, Minister Green. We have had somebody in storytelling. We have had Trisha Bailey, the business lady. Long list. And the gentleman today, about a year ago, as Consul General, we have to go to several events. And this gentleman I'm about to introduce is my friend, is my brethren, and I saw him billed as a guest speaker. And to be honest with you, though I know him as a charismatic gentleman and thing, I was expecting him to give a little talk and just kind of hold the place. Well, it come and mash up the place because his story is a powerful one. In fact, when he left, I really felt moved. I really felt moved to go and do something more with my life. This gentleman has done a lot. You'll hear more about it and don't want to burst his bubble. But you are in for a treat today. So when he told me he was doing his book launch, it was a no-brainer to have him here. Because what you're going to get is a real-life episode of a gentleman who has gone through the fire. He has gone through the challenges. He didn't get a gold spoon in his mouth. But he fought through, and with resilience, he has achieved a lot today. This is a homebred Jamaican talent. And I met him maybe about 2 years ago. And he continues to be a beacon of light, of hope, of a great example for young Jamaican men and women to follow. And so with no further ado, I want to give maximum time to him. Before I bring up, I want to just say a big round of applause to Island Space. Thank them for hosting us. Can we give them a round of applause? A little later on in the end, I'll tell us about some upcoming events we're going to be having celebrating independence and some exciting events happening in the community. In fact, I just came back from Jamaica. Those who participated in our 5K, we adopted 6 clinics. We're up to 6 clinics now. The region has adopted 16 clinics, the most in the world, and we just took a group of 57, 25 persons from the community. And anything here is slipping is a kind of medical Roman focus. No, we took a group of 25 persons from the community. We adopted a clinic in a university in the West Indies, and we visited some of the clinics that we have adopted in the past. And we were able to hand over medical equipment for our annual 5K that many of you have participated in. And we had 1,600 members, 1,600 persons participated on 5K this year, including Sizzla Kalanji, including Kimani Marley, and including Garold and Campbell Brown, who are our Breeze ambassadors. The link is open already for the 5K next year. We already have close to 200 persons registered, and that is www.jamaica-5krun.com. We have a $20 special right now, so you can register now for next year, and you can be assured that your contributions go to a magnificent cause Because when you see the heartfelt thanks of our nurses and people in the community, they really appreciate the efforts here by the community that's come together to rally to support our clinics in Jamaica. So that was a kind of sidetrack. Let me turn back now. I was driving, I'm gonna take a little right turn, I'm gonna turn back again now. This gentleman is somebody you want to listen to carefully, word for word, because his experience is going to inspire you today. Whatever challenges you're going through, whatever goals you're planning to achieve, listen to the story in a way that says, today I want to live different from how I came. If you make an intention in your mind today to say, listen, I'm going to be open to explore a new way of achieving my goals or achieving what is important to me. Because we all have something big that we need to contribute to the world. Each one of us here. And this gentleman here is going to share his experience. My good friend and one of the finest gentlemen to come out of Jamaica land we love. Please give a big round of applause to Dr. Hamilton. That is a thank you. A big round of applause, Dr. Hamilton. Thank you. I have been coaching for many years, so please welcome. Thank you. Thank you, coach. Thank you. So first, thank you to the CG Oliver Mears for having me here. Thank you to Alan Space for this beautiful space. We have to give them our applause for this beautiful space. And the opportunity to speak to my friends, speak to people or some of my family that's here, and really to share my story with my Jamaican folks, my Caribbean folks, and my U.S. folks. It's always a pleasure just to try to lead from the front and try to let people understand that there's possibilities if you do work hard. And I just want to share that this is my second book. My first book was called Ghetto Bible. A lot of people ask, why Ghetto Bible? A lot of the publisher said, can you change the name? It would be easier to sell to people and stuff and everything. And I said, no, I wanted to actually speak to the youths of the community and people who are from underserved, at-risk community who understand that not because you're from there doesn't mean that you belong there. It doesn't mean that you can't get success. It doesn't matter where you're from. It doesn't matter if you start. It doesn't matter your big game. It's how you finish. And that's what my new book, From Grit to Glory, is about. It's saying, so grit. And I'm going to expand on it. But I want to say first, good evening to you all. Good evening. And today, I want to say a lot of people here are professionals. We have legacy builders, we have barrier breakers in here. But I want to say, today I didn't come to give a motivational speech. Today I came to speak life into someone. That's what I'm trying to do. And I came to tell the truth and to celebrate wins as well and to honor our roots because that's what's important. What I'm trying to do, I'm trying to ignite a flame of legacy with every one of us. That's what I'm trying to do, and that's what my book talks about. This is more than a keynote, and that's what I'm saying to myself. This is actually a reason with my people. Because my journey from hustle to legacy isn't abstract. It's about me. It's a lived experience, and it's still going. Someone said to me, hey, my friend, yes, yes, I came from grit, but I'm not yet, at glory. But I'm going to define it. And I'm sure there's many situations in which glory exists in everyone. And that's what we're going to talk about. I want to tell you that for the next maybe 30 minutes, or maybe 2 hours if you want me to talk longer. This is not just business, but I'm going to talk about belief. I'm not just going to talk about wealth also, but I'm going to talk about wisdom. Not just legacy, but I'm going to talk about leadership, because with leadership, we can rise. So here's the roadmap and what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about my personal journey from a little district called Charlotte to the boardroom of America. I'm going to talk about mindset shift from hustle to enterprise. I'm going to talk about real estate, reinvestment, and business of purpose. I'm going to talk about building a business abroad while investing in your homeland. I'm going to talk about lessons from failures, setbacks, and quiet victories. Legacy as a blueprint, not just inheritance. What every Caribbean leader should do must know is to secure a place for the next generation. That's what we're trying to do. So let's talk about where I'm from. I describe it in both of my books. It's a place that's nested between two cemeteries, Doily and Tate cemeteries. So I can say all my life I hang around dead people. Unfortunately. But that made me very resilient and not scared, absolutely painful. That's what my grit is about. It's about that resilience that you build up when you're from that community and from that background, and nothing fazes you. Eventually. So whatever you can throw at me, I have thick enough skin to actually take it, throw it right back, and double down on it. And that's what we do as Caribbean people. I didn't grow up with excess, but if you Google Charlotte, you're not going to find mansions. You're not going to find gated communities. But what we have was more valuable than that. What we had was raw potential. I was raised in a home full of discipline and belief, and that's what's important, my moral values. My mother and father, they didn't have much in their hands. But what they have everything in their heart. And that's what's important. We didn't grow up with excess. We grew up with examples of how to stretch a dollar, how to find joy without luxury, how to grind without complaint, and how to keep your head high even when your pockets were low. I sold back juice. My mother baked and sell. I was a barber. I worked on a construction site as a laborer while taking time from high school. I used to sell plum, lunchtime at Manny's. I did it all. But that was also my lessons. And that is responsible for everything that I do now, because those were my building blocks for growth. So, what I had was more than what a lot of people have. I had big dreams. And here's the thing about growing up in a place like Charlotte. You learn early that success isn't a destination. It's a journey, but also it's a fight. And if you fight hard enough, you'll stop surviving and start shaping a life like you want to live. And I'm going to ask a question to my audience. How many of you know what it's like to wake up with more dreams than dollars in your pocket? I want to see that. How many of you? See? And that's all of us. That's where we start. And that's where we all started. So let's define the Caribbean hustle in the context of our ancestral entrepreneurship. We say Caribbean people love to hustle. What do we mean by that? Yes, we can do 2, 3, 4 jobs. Still hustling today. It's ancestral. Our great grandparents farmed. My grandmother was a farmer. They sold produce, she sold produce. Our mothers, baked, take care of the neighbors, run churches. My mother used to work at the slaughterhouse as well, and they never asked for applause. That's just what they do. So this is not new. We've always been multi-hyphenated masters of survival. That's what we do. In Kingston, the woman who owns a cook shop and manages her kids' education, handles books, and prays every morning, to me, that's a CEO. Even if they don't call her that. For a person, even in St. Elizabeth, with a fishing boat and calculated his return on investment in his head, that's a COO. That's what they do. Even they don't call it that. In Kingston again, or in St. Andrew, a carnival man selling his flags, water, and vibes. That's a full stack marketing genius. Because he's finding a way how to sell something that's in demand. So everything that we do is setting the pace for success. What we do, we inherited something else, which I think is important. We inherit a scarcity mindset. It's a need. We were taught to hustle hard, but not always taught how to scale. And that's what we're going to talk about. We knew how to work, but not always how to build wealth. And it's just our generation. It's not something that we ought to know. But it's important for me to talk to us about it because that's why I'm talking to you and that's what I'm teaching my kids as well. Hustling is noble, but hustling forever is not a goal. We must move from hustle into systems, from survival to structure, and from daily grind to generational wealth. That's what we are to aim for. What I can tell you, education for me changed my life. And I could tell you my story and I talk about it a whole lot. If it wasn't for my mother, I wouldn't go to university. I had the skills. I had the educational background. I passed all my subjects. I did extremely well. But I didn't have any money. I had no plans. I had no backup. My dad had an accident when I was 11. Couldn't work. My mom didn't have a job. She stopped going to school when she was 13 years old. So whatever she did in terms of hustle, sent us to school, buy us clothes. But there's no way that what she had could send me to the University of the West Indies when I got accepted. But I'll tell you something. When I didn't have a plan, I went home one day, my mother said to me, "What are you doing? Are you not going to school?" And I said, "Mom, you don't have any money." She said, "You got through for University of the West Indies?" I said, "Yes." "Oh, we can't afford it." She said to me, "Son, your bag is packed. We are going to university." So that wasn't me, we. And that's what she said. I remember took a bus to Kingston and we arrived at the University of the West Indies admission. When I arrived there, admission said, "Oh, there's no space. We're 3 weeks into the semester. There's no space. What I can do is put you on the waiting list." I said, "Okay, that's okay for me. Put me on the waiting list." So I went back to my cousins in Spanish Town and sat there for the next 2 weeks. My mother went up to the university every day. She sit in admission and she just basically sometimes just asked them, "Is there any space yet?" That's what she asked almost every day. And I tell you what, in that 2 weeks, after the 2 weeks, she called me one day and she said, "Son, can you come to the university? You got through." And I'm like, this is unbelievable. When I went up there, the reason why I was called up there, the dean wanted to talk to me himself. he said, that Dr. Morris, I can't forget, he said, I called you because I want to talk to you myself. I didn't give you the space for you. I gave it for your mom because she was always here. And sometimes she just put up her hand for acknowledgement that she's actually here. And he said, if you failed her, I will personally deal with you myself. This man don't know me, but that's the Jamaican parentage and the community parentage that I'm used to. And listen, I realized from that point that I wasn't doing it for myself. I realized at that point that I had a superhero. I realized that at that point that failure wasn't an option. I wasn't doing it for myself. I was first up, I was doing it for her. And in line, I'm doing it for my family because I was the first one out. I was the second for my parents, but I was the first to go to university. So at that point, I realized that there's no way I could let them down. And from that point, anything that I do, when it comes to education, when it comes to sports, I make sure I'm giving it my absolute all. Because that's what my mom would do. So, if, I tell you that moment, sometimes you have to understand that someone else's sacrifice should never be wasted. And that's what I know. And also, that persistent is louder than any qualifications. That's what she taught me. And when life doesn't give you a seat, what do? You either create one or show up anyway. They will make a seat for you. Or you just sit on the floor. At least you're there. And that's what she taught me. So let's talk about my corporate journey. My corporate journey is something else. I left Jamaica to go to the United Kingdom after finishing University of the West Indies. Once again, I didn't have a plan. I was on a 2-year, what you call a Commonwealth working visa. You see, we work for 2 years. So I'm not telling any of my employers or potential employers that I'm trying to get a job. You're supposed to be a holiday maker. You're supposed to work just to supplement your travel. That's what it means. Yeah, I'm just trying to figure this out. I applied for 100 jobs. I got 98 rejections. So listen, I learned, I know rejection inside out. So nothing in my life deterred me when it comes to rejection. I have no idea. I got 2 affirmative, I got 2 responses that showed some hope. One, it was a lab, and the guy said to me, oh, well, I can hire you, but you have to work for free. Okay, so that wasn't an option. I need to pay my bills. I need to do something. So that's not an option. The others was a guy from a company called Care Construction, a large construction company. When I walked up to him, I remember traveling across London, and he was a black man. I was excited. I'm like, wow, this is my opportunity. Introduced myself. The first thing the guy said to me, I am going to tell you the reason why you're not suited for this opportunity. What? How can you start off an interview like that? That's crazy. I just saw my resume. I have no UK experience. So I said, oh, well, maybe he's just testing me. So I said, okay. So I started laying out my experience. I used to work with JPS in the summer. I worked as a laborer on the site. I worked for architects. Doesn't matter what I said to him. The man said, still saying the same thing. And I didn't get the job. Remember, he said to me, it was October. He said, most of the jobs that we have are actually given to people who have a degree from the UK. So you're very late, so it's going to be difficult for you to get a job. Okay. So I tried to figure it out. I worked for a magazine company called Johnson of London. Customer service. £4.50 an hour. I think engineer you should be making 40. But I could tell you, I worked that job like it was my own. I was the best customer service agent that you would have. taught me a whole lot of stuff and actually teach me about clients, client relations, and business development. So there's a whole lot of stuff in building your blocks and really giving your 150% in whatever you took you got. I did it for a year. And then I got an opportunity. I saw an ad in the newspaper and it was asking for environmental engineering. Wow, it's good. It was meant to be. Applied, went there, was offered the position. I remember the guy asked me, what's your expected salary? I requested that. He would pay me anything. That's what I said to him. I said, I don't care, I just want to get an engineering job. He said, how does £8 an hour sound? Fantastic. I'm on 4.5, like, that sounds great. So I remember walking outside and the secretary was a black lady. And she said to me, why did you say yes to £8 an hour? Did you see they said they were offering up to £12 an hour for the job? I said, yeah, but don't worry about it. I have a plan. And my plan, I just want to get in. I want to get on the ladder. That's what I wanted to do. So I did. When they gave me that job, I remember he asked me if I could use a program called AutoCAD. At the time, that's the drug program that you do. I don't know how to use AutoCAD because I was scared of computing. But I said to him, I can. I had a computer at home. I went home and actually bought the program over the weekend. I was starting on Monday. And you better believe it. On Monday, I was drawing in AutoCAD. On Monday, I could, and that's something that even Virgin boss Richard Branson said. If you get an opportunity and you don't know how to do it, say yes and then figure out how to do it. That's what I did. And I've been doing it all my career. There's nothing that you can't try to do. So what I did, just start from there. I was a normal engineer, entry level at that point. My boss actually offered me to pay for my master's. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. What? Free. Pay for my master's. Was recruited highly by a firm 2 years after. I went into management 3 years into my career, which is a fast track. So don't want to talk all day, but became a vice president, became a senior vice president when I moved to the US of a company called WC, which has over 80,000 people worldwide. I became the head of healthcare for WC, the first black man to be in an executive position in WC. There's a lot of glass ceiling that basically that I've gone through. When I actually was working with Smith Group as well, I became a partner. I was the first partner for that firm. They're 230 years old, black partner. So there's a lot of firsts in the industry. Most of the people that I work with don't look like me. I could say 99% of the people. But what I didn't do it because I wanted to feel superior. To be honest, when I started achieving those stuff, I understand that it was a calling. And I understand that what I needed to do is to show others that this is possible. It became my mission. And my task was not only to show them, but to help them. I recruited a lot of black people who look like me. I sought out HBCUs that most of my companies never even considered, even though it's next door to them. I recruited from Howard University. I recruited from, you name it, Morehouse. None of these companies didn't think about this. I brought them to the, it's actually, there is, Institute of Black Engineers, the National Society of Black Engineers. I brought them to display at conferences, so that we can attract people that look like us. So my ad would even change to attracting our own and making sure that diversity was an important part of my mantra going forward. So what I was doing, I was trying to build a legacy. And that's what I contribute to do because that's important. So what I want to talk about also is, let's talk about doing more than 9 to 5. So my job is not 9 to 5. It's 9 to whatever time that they. So I am a senior vice president and growth leader for a company called Introva. Introva is owned by the Dar Group out of Saudi Arabia. They own about 15 companies, and Introva that I work for is one of those companies. I'm actually in charge of a team that's working on the Al Maktoum Airport in Dubai right now, which is 10 times the size of the largest airport in the world. Look it up, AMG Al Maktoum Airport in Dubai. They basically are scaling, they're building 5 times that size of the existing airport because of the traffic that comes through, and Dubai is really just in transit. It's a lot in transit for people in Saudi Arabia and in the Middle East. So that's the project that we're actually working on currently. But as well as doing that, University of Miami, we do most of the medical equipment planning for them, and a lot of universities have, when it comes to healthcare and science and technology, like we do it all, and that's what my charge is, to grow that company because they want to grow in terms of size. We have 1,000 employees, U.S., Canada, Australia, the UK, and Ireland. So let's talk a little bit more about laying some foundation. So it's not only that, I'm also a real estate investor in my homeland, in Jamaica. And to be honest, I believe that's one of the best things that I've ever done. And I'm going to tell you how I start and how it unfolds. So while climbing this ladder and stuff, I was always figuring out, how am I going to lay my foundations back home? I said, let me walk through the progression. First, I took a leap. I was in the UK, and when I was working for the telecom company, Level 3 Communication, they made me offer. They said, at the time, between the dot-com era and bottom fell out the market. They said, we're gonna lay off some folks, and we can give you a voluntary layoff and pay you for the whole year. And I'm like, what? What do you mean? Like, I'm a hustler. That's what you're gonna pay me for the whole year, and I can go and get a job after that. I was the first one that says yes. I said, I'll take it. They paid me for the whole year. And I got a job the next week. So I was getting paid twice. And I said, I had that surplus income. What I did, I purchased a piece of land in Salvador. The location is Walter Tennessee City. And I remember when I bought the land, there was no house anywhere near it. It was empty. There was some house on the other side. And I saw, some of my friends and stuff saying they were going to build a house, and they were building a big house and everything. I decided that I'm going to build an apartment complex because I want to be a real estate mogul. That's what I told myself. That's my dream. I don't know what it means, but that's what I thought. So I remember when I started building this place, and I remember it came out the foundation. This place the land was extremely low. So I had to spend millions of dollars to dump it before I even start building. So I'm going to shout out my cousin, Garold Hamilton, that's sitting right there, who was actually running things down there for me and making sure that I'm taken care of in terms of, building while being overseas. I remember the first storm came. The thing was sitting in a pool of water. They called it the Titanic. People were laughing at me. They're like, "This man is a madman. Like, why would he build in a pool of water? There's no way that makes a whole lot of sense." Fast forward, I completed the building. It's 8 units, 4 2-bedroom, 4 1-bedroom units. Rented it out, got it full of tenants. And subsequent to that, I could tell you, the whole of that stretch is all apartments. That's the whole of that stretch. So I did something that basically a lot of people wanted to do, but they weren't, maybe scared or whatever it takes. Sometimes you have to take the lead, and sometimes that you have to lead to show people that it can't be done. So what I can tell you also, it's not only providing rental income, but also providing employment for people from my community. A lot of people said, "Why didn't you invest in SAP?" I have people that's working for me that could take care of their kids, that could send their kids to school. I have people that's doctors, lawyers that lived in an apartment, and it's quality apartment for them to take care of their patients and their clients. That's what I call food surgery legacy. I've always wanted, to make a real estate investment. So not only completing that, it was very successful. Then I said to myself, what if I do it again? I do it bigger this time. So maybe 8 years after, I basically purchased an unfinished apartment that was, they were going to build 4 units. And, they started it. The guy said, I'm looking to sell it. I don't think I want to do it again. I bought that complex and I doubled it. Actually, instead of 4 units, I designed 8 units to be on that complex, but 12 units. 8 1-bedroom, 4 2-bedroom. And, at all those times, I didn't have a clue how I'm actually going to, if I calculate the money to build most of those, there's no way I could afford it. I remember going into Jamaica National and the building was half finished and, I put the money that I need and, I asked, I wanted to take a loan. And when the guy actually, I remember it's Howard Plantinger, a good friend of mine. Yes, Garold Hamilton, I'm telling you, he was the manager for Jamaica National. When he told me the payment that I needed to pay per month, I almost fell off my chair. I told him I soon come back. I don't think he'd see me. Like until years later. I'm like, there's no way I'm gonna borrow that money and let them take everything that I have. Because at the time, I was trying to do it alone. But I completed the building, 20 units in Sablamar, in my hometown. That was the proudest moment of my life. What I showed again that can't be done. And I can tell you, that's the most successful investment I've ever made. Residual income, providing employment, providing a great space for people to live, and serving the community that you were born in. It's just something you model. I still have a clue when I go there, I stay there. So that's something that I think that a lot of people don't even think too much about, but it was always something, always my dream. So I said, okay, so I still wanted to be a real estate mogul. So how do I do this? How do I scale? So that's what I'm talking about. How do I scale? So once again, I'm going to tell you something about having a network of friends. When they said your net worth is your net worth, that's no joke. I'm a person, I'm always a connector. One of my best friends actually is a lawyer, and he was, came to the UK. I used to take care of him when he was in the UK because I was working, he was at law school. He used to come to my house and, at the time, my mom cooked Oliver food every weekend. So that's where everybody ate. We play football, do all sorts of stuff. And my friend came to me and said, hey, I started a company, but we have some issues and stuff. Do you think you want to buy into that company? I would, would want you to come in as a partner. Sounds fantastic. Let me hear more about it. It's real estate. They had a real estate development company. I became a part of a company called Red Equity Jamaica. And the first project that we did was Russell Heights. We did 12 townhouses at Russell Heights, and we sold them. Very successful project. The next project that we did was 280 Mountain View Avenue. We built an office building, beautiful complex. We call it Red Equity Professional Suite. Like when the four of us partners just, we stand, we have pictures of the empty land that we had, and maybe about 50 feet down that we dug down and actually built 2 parking spaces below ground. And that was the first building with 2 parking spaces, 2 levels of parking in Jamaica. It was one. And when I said to them, I remember I went to plan permission. KCC, they're like, well, we can't do that. I'm like, oh, they did. I'm doing building with 10 parking spaces below ground. It's possible. Just look at the water table. We do the geo study. I can prove to you that it can be done. It's done. We have no water problem. Absolutely none. The building is standing 2.5 years. Never. But what we did was creating a group of friends, a network of friends, of professionals. I was an engineer and a project manager. I had a lawyer who was part of my group, my partner. I have a contractor who was part of my group. We had a pilot. I'm not sure how that come in, but we'll figure that out. Maybe we need to buy a plane or something, but we'll find use for him sometime. But it's being around the right group of people. Raise money. At that point, we didn't have to. We raised the money. We basically borrowed to get it built, and that's what we do. That project was completed, and we roll on to the next one. So the next one, a lot of people are saying, okay, we did office building, we did a luxury townhouse complex. What's your next project? We said we wanted to dial back. We said we wanted to create affordable housing. We said we want to do it in Kingston. But the challenge is that you can't afford the land in some of the areas to actually build anything like that. We bought an acre in Vineyard Town. Other people is like, oh, you're never going to sell it. We have this land for ages, but we decided that we're going to do this project because we want to provide housing to people who can't afford it as well. Yes, it's a hard sell. It's fine. But what you're doing is creating something that's going to be that has equity and it's going to serve you much longer. So right now we have a full 52-bedroom units. The structure is completed. They're doing the fit out of that space, and we should be completed in 4 months. And I give you a plug. Wayne Stewart there, Carter Banker, is one of my realtors that actually sell it. So if you're interested in buying the units, talk to him about it. Yeah, and we're selling it for $35 million. You can't get 1,000 square feet for $35 million nowhere. Because we wanted to enter the market and we wanted to make sure that we're providing housing at the point where people can afford it. So it's all about creating a legacy also. We can do many other stuff. Each of us have our own life, our own employment, business, but we wanted also to do something for our community. So let's talk about another thing. And it's funny, Oliver know that I'm also in private equity. I'm a partner called Eddie Mears. He has a company called Equity Capital Management. And Equity owns 20% of Dollar Financial. So I don't know you know about the records that they broke and stuff, but Equity Capital Management has real estate investment, they own an insurance company. What I work with them closely for is that I convince them to buy 2 hospitals. Healing is something that's a part of my life. And I can tell you a lot of stories about it, but go and read my book and you find some more stuff about it. But healthcare design is my profession. But what I wanted to do, I said, hey, what if we can create a healthcare system in Jamaica, a private healthcare system, to parallel some of the stuff that we have here and create spaces that are accredited and you could actually go to Jamaica and use insurance and use these facilities. That's my dream. How could I do that dream? I can't afford it, myself. So we created a platform that we can do that. We bought into Royal Medical in Savamar. And then Royal Medical, we raised money by Winchester Medical Center in Kingston. So we have two hospitals that I'm on the board of both hospitals, and I run some of the operations of both Winchester and Royal Medical. Still doing my job that I do know, but that's my passion. Also, it's not all about money. It's about building a legacy as well, and also helping my Jamaica people. And that's something that's important to me. And also, I should tell you, Equity is really setting up themselves right now to raise some more capital. And I don't know, they might go to the capital market. So you'll hear more about it. So this sometimes is not always about profit. It's about purpose and performance. What we want to do, and I'm telling you, this is what I want to do. I want to share my formula. And if you have a pen, you want to write it down. What we want to do, we want to cultivate a vision. We want to hustle. Without a vision, hustle without a vision is just survival. We don't want to survive. We want to see what others can. Believe before it exists. And secondly, we want to embrace strategy. Get leader advice. Register your company. Know your numbers. Structure is greater than sweat. We want to build with people. Legacy is a team sport. We want to build a network that believes in more than profit. Stay rooted in your values. Integrity will open doors that ambition can't. Know that. Don't forget your roots. That's extremely important. Keep you grounded when the storm comes. And lastly, give back always. That's why I created a foundation called DTR Foundation. And it's on my, it's a 501c nonprofit. I do a lot of things in the community, and that's something that the best thing I do in my life. If I had all the money in my life, I would be doing charity work and give back to all my community in Jamaica. That's what I would do. The best job that you can do is for free, and it's to give and mentorship and all the stuff that we do for it. And I wanted, big up Al Pinner, who is the vice president of BTR Foundation as well. So I'm gonna take a couple minutes to say, hey, just think about it. I want to ask you a question. What are you building for? And secondly, what does your legacy look like in 20 years? What can you start this year that will outlive you? Just think about it. That's something that I want to challenge you to think about. But not only to that, I want you to put it into action as well. Like a lot of people, would ask me, a lot of my friends would say, man, when do you sleep? And we get up and send him videos in the morning to work out and say, get up, Ali, said, get up, you need to work out. He's like, man, stop taking drugs. Why are you up so early? You just went to bed. But this is a situation. I have a method. I still have an app that I work with. I have mastermind stuff that I every day and every week I set my goals. And every day at the end of the day, I clock my goals, whether I achieve it or not. That's just how I do it. I don't know if it's because I'm an engineer, that's what I do, but that's what I do. I want to write down stuff every day. I have an app called Edge app, that's what I do. I actually enter all the stuff that I do. Edge app, Edge. And I'm going to tell you more about it. So legacy, I want to tell you something in terms of legacy. It's not what you leave, it's who you live. And I repeat that. I said, legacy is not what you leave, it's who you live. Someone is watching your journey right now. Someone will build from your blueprint. Someone will eat from the tree that you planted. And talking about tree that I planted, I have a friend, Ali as well, that I stayed at his Airbnb, and he has a lot of mangoes, Julie mangoes. And every day I get about pure Julie mangoes. The other day we went there and post some pictures of me eating Julie mangoes, and people start selling me all sort of tastiness that they didn't know that I'm evil. But what I'm saying to you is that whether you are in Toronto, whether you're in Brooklyn, New York, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, we're one Caribbean team. And our mission is not just survival, it's transformation. Legacy is not a solo race, it's a relay. You run your leg, you pass your button, and some of us are have first generation wealth. Some of us don't. Some of us are first graduate to university. Some of us are the first to buy land, even to buy a house. But we must not be the last. We're not just hustlers. We are architects of the Caribbean. We're architects. We build, we design, and we design what we want and how we want so that our next generation can follow. So in closing, I want to tell you, I'm a dreamer. So DTR is Dream to Reality Foundation. I'm a dreamer. And my dream is a day when our children inherit companies from us and not struggle. Caribbean minds lead global movements everywhere. We're already doing it. When investment return home, remember, it's still the most beautiful place that you can do, anywhere in the Caribbean. Our diaspora becomes a place of development. We think always about how it can be built back home. We have the grit. We have the genius. And now we must build legacy. I also want to leave you with this. From the sugarcane field of Westmoreland to the beacon of the education at the University of the West Indies, from the hustle in Charlene to the boardrooms of America, let the world know that we came from struggle. We are building systems in America and in the diaspora. But we rose from grit, from resilience, from fight. But we're standing here, and we're standing in glory. And our legacy will speak for us for generations. Thank you. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are in the room here and you have been touched, moved, and inspired by what you've heard, just raise your hand right now. Let's give it up for true Jamaican Caribbean talent. Never get the goals put in your mouth, but he persevered. And really, I want to use this opportunity to, first of all, commend you, sir, for sticking to your dream, persevering and achieving, and then sharing. And at this time, we're going to allow persons to ask questions and get some practical solutions, because we don't want you to just come here and hear a great speech about Dr. Hamilton. We want you to leave empowered, making it a difference in your life today. All right, so this time, questions. The edge up. Yeah, I was looking for it too. We'll give you more information on the edge. Any questions? And Magic doing that, son, I'll put it on. And definitely inspiring story. And main question for you is times were tough. What were your biggest motivators? How did you conquer tough times? So I could tell you the first thing is my faith in the Almighty God. I can tell you that. I grew up in the church. I used to have Sunday school at my house. So it was my beginning, and it's, I always say I accept faith always over fear. I always think of my cup as not half empty or half full. I think of it that I can fill it whenever I want. So when the struggles come, that's where I go to my grit in terms of my background and where I'm from, in Charlene, and all the stuff that I've been through. I could tell you, I have stories in which, a lot of people know me closely and stuff and everything. I walk around the place, I run and post all this stuff. I only have one kneecap. I lost my kneecap when I was 18 years old in a bike accident. I was in hospital for 3 months. I missed a month and a half of university. When I called to go to Trinidad because I did young engineering, they said to me, the dean said, "Are you crazy? You can't come. It's too late." But I still went. I didn't fail. I passed. I didn't just pass. I graduated top of my class. So we just don't survive. We did. And when they tell you, when the doctor said, "Hey, Garold, I'm afraid that you will never play football again," I still play football now. So even against medical advice, it doesn't matter what it is they throw at you. That grit, that resilience, and the strong faith is everything that you need.
Until now at this age, I can't drive a car. Like, you tell me how you pass those two cemeteries, and at this age, I still can't drive past them. Please help me with that because I still can't pass those cemeteries until
I could tell you something bigger than that. Where's Rupert? Zico. And who play football? Who play football for Mannix? Hector Linton. They can tell you. I used to walk through the cemetery every day to go to school. Every day. Even at nights. Oh! King Banton in the house. So this is something that you get used to. For some reason, you get used to that type of thing. I remember I had friends used to dress up in white sheet and roll down when we were coming from clubs in the night. Roll down in the road. Like, crazy thing you think of. But I think if you live something and if you're in that environment, it just becomes normal. Like the graveyard in Dawes was where we played football. Greatest friend experience. When I used to do trim hair and stuff and everything, I used to do it under a guanga tree. And a grave that was digged up and stuff and everything was one of the things that they sit on and actually cut people hair on top of it. But this is how crazy it was. That's just our norm. It wasn't, so if you lived it, it just become your norm. It's not, it's crazy when it bring people, they think you're crazy, but that was the way of life. And we just get used to it.
All right. So, I've got a question. And thank you for being here tonight. Great story. You don't have to be afraid of the dead, right? Even you have to be afraid. Yes. So question is about your greatest failure. How did you overcome that?
My greatest fear or failure? Failure. So it's funny. I had many failures. Many. And I remember, I don't know, I remember doing additional mathematics in fourth form. I'm going to tell you a story. I was very good in maths. And then I used to have a cocky friend called Robert Bihari. I don't know if he's here.
Oh, look at him around the back there.
And I remember the first exam that I did. Remember, like everybody came in with their additional maths, everybody came with their grades and stuff in there. And you get 95 and Robert did 100. I remember I got 25%. I was top of the class in third form. And I go to fourth form and that floored me. Like completely, I'm like, Jesus, I hide my paper. I remember I'm not telling anybody my grades. Like, listen, I was completely embarrassed. And then you cannot show it to Robert because he will make fun of you for the rest of your life. He still does tell people, but but it's still my friend, but that's how he is. But I remember going through that and make a decision that it doesn't, those are the stuff that you learn from. From that point, he can tell you, like I don't get anything less than 90% in additional mathematics from that day. And from that day, maths became my subject. It was my subject before, but I realized that basically you cannot slack off. And then you're going to go through many challenges. So I could tell you that, one of my biggest disappointments was sitting in the University of the West Indies Hospital for 3 months and couldn't get out to go to Trinidad, and I got to go to Trinidad. So that was one of my biggest setbacks. But also, I think I actually figured out my purpose at that point. And I figure out my grit as well and understand the strength that I have within me. And I always think that and always feel that failure is an important part of success. You fail forward. And what that means is that you learn from your failure. So never think that failure is final. Failure is always an opportunity. And that's how I see it. And failure is an important part of success. And without failure, there's no glory. Can you talk louder, Robert?
So, Garold, what I want you to elaborate on is the fact that we came to Washington and the fact that when
Come on, hold on.
the fact that when you came to Washington D.C. in 2003, and you great. When you came to Washington D.C. in 2003, and it's not about me, so you got years for. I remember my friends were doing so well at Howard. You look at me, you got a job offer. You started corporate America. You look at me, you said, look, I'm going to take this on like nobody else. I want you to elaborate on how you navigate the corporate America, the risk you took, how you left one job, each job you keep rising higher, and how you become Washington D.C. and also coming to the risk.
So you know what? Like I'm a dreamer, and that's what I talk about. But the thing about it also with how I look at stuff, I always look at possibilities. And when I came to Washington D.C. and saw so much people look like me and so much affluent people, and I'm like, man, this is somewhere I think I want to be. So I went back to the UK and I put my resume online and actually select Washington D.C., Virginia, Maryland, all the areas around it, for companies to see my resume. In 3 hours, I got an email, and a company said to me, "Hey, if you want to come for an interview, we'll pay for your we pay for your flight and pay for your hotel." And I'm like, "What? Like that's a vacation to me? I'm taking it." I'm like, I don't even care if I get the job. And then my friends were over there and stuff and everything. We're going to Howard and everything. And I'm like, man, I'm going to party. So it wasn't an intentional. I was like, yes, I want to come. But I came, they offered me the job on the spot. Like, it was just unbelievable. But what it is also, because I saw opportunities, I saw a lot of my friends who were engineers and working and going to Howard and stuff and everything. And I'm like, man, this place I'm good at. Like, I wouldn't say it to everybody, but Robert, I call him Pete, he's close to me. I said, man, I'm going to take this space on and I'm going to show them the possibilities. You know, sometimes you have to speak it and put it out there, even if you don't believe it. And to be honest, I don't know if I believe it at that point, but I start believing it when I start moving up. I started with a small company. I went to a company called Smith Group after, which is one of the largest architectural engineering firm in the US. When I was leaving the company that I was leaving, the boss said to me, why are you going there? You would never be a partner there. You know, you're an engineer. It's mostly architects that work for their company. In 3.5 years, I was a partner. So that grit I tell you about, tell me that I can't do it, and I'm going to show you how it can be done. And not only that, like when I left that company, I was, you know, compensated well. When I left that company, I actually went to WSP, and that's the 80,000 people worldwide. I remember I went in as a senior vice president as well. So I did skip vice president. I went from a partner straight to senior vice president. I couldn't even believe when they called me and said, hey, you know, you give me your role as a senior vice president. What? That's crazy. Like, I couldn't even get vice president, you know, because you have to spend 15 years at the other firm. But I was a senior vice president. Very, you know, fast track. And then, not only that, I was working for my boss at the time, owned a company that was bought by WSP. And his son was the head of healthcare. So I was working for his son. And what he actually did, he said, you know, you two are our peers. I was actually 2 years older than him. But he was in that position because his father gave him that job. You know, so I worked for him for 3 years and worked with him for 3 years. And his father was retiring. And his father called me before retiring and said, you know, Gary, I want to tell you that I'm retiring, and I want you to know, you're one of the first men I think that came to this company and really changed how we look at building, you know, business development, thought leadership, you know, just how you do stuff that's completely different. And this guy, I can tell you how much he believed in me. I remember I became a fellow of the American Hospital Association. I was the first Black person to become a fellow at 42 years old. Like, but it's something that I aspire for. And I remember in the crowd, like, you know, I saw my boss don't go to conferences, and he was actually there at my conference. He watched me collect my fellow, shake my hand, jump back on the plane, and went back to New York. And that's the type of people that we want support to be. He called me before retiring and said, I'm going to sit down, but before I go, I want you to become the head of healthcare. And I'm like, but your son, what, you know, how does that work? He said, don't worry, I already talked to him. So he said, to be honest, you've been the head of healthcare, but you just don't wear the title. I want to make sure before I leave that you have that title. And I don't know his fate, and I tell you it's blessing, but I didn't feel good about it. And his son was, you know, the job that he got was kind of, to me, a demotion. I felt that, but it's an opportunity. And I became the head of healthcare, you know, first Black person doing that position, growing healthcare from $40 million to $125 million in 5 years. I didn't know that I could do that. I didn't know that it was even possible. And that's why I become a growth leader. I didn't know that I'm a growth leader. Like, this is all stuff that's unfolded. And that's what it is when you take chances, but also when you believe. And then when you put the things out there, and that's why I asked, what were your plans, you know, for the year? What can you do that can last a lifetime? Put it out there. Write it down. Sometimes become real. So that's something that I think that's important.
Hi, I'm Brennan. So do you feel that the way you navigated corporate America and the way you were perceived by corporate America is different as someone from the Caribbean versus somebody who was, a Black American, for instance, or somebody who's from somewhere else versus somebody from the Caribbean who had the benefits of living in a country, was primarily, saw Black, you know what I mean? Like,
I understand what you mean. I understand what you mean. I didn't see racism before I came here. I didn't understand it. I didn't know why people would be racist. I didn't, I know that we live near Nigeria and we love white people. I always, love to see them. We like, they were great. But it did, because I didn't see. And one of the things that I can tell you is that I can tell you, I faced it and I received it. I was in the UK. I remember jumping in a bus and going to my job. I'm fully in suit and everything. And early in the morning. And I walked to the back of the bus and there was a white lady in there. And she grabbed her bag and shuffled to the front of the bus. What the hell does she think I'm going to do? Rob her? I'm in a suit. Like, you know what I mean? I thought that my suit was like, it wasn't as fitted as, this one, but, I thought I was well dressed. But that's the thing about it, you don't understand. Color can be a challenge. I remember coming to the US and working for the first company, and there was a Black man that came to sell something. Walked into the office and they were trying to get him out. And they couldn't get him out. I remember, two other engineers came to me and said, and hold my hand and said, security. I'm like, am I security? And I realized that I'm also a security agent for the company. I didn't even know that. Because I'm tall, Black, and nobody else looked like me in that office. But for me, to be honest, it didn't deter me. I didn't take that as something that's going to stop me from doing anything or achieving anything. So a normal African American or American who lives there, I'm sure he would see that as something completely different. But to me,
the reason that you saw that differently is because you were raised in the Caribbean versus they were raised here. I just want to say
absolutely. And that's the grit. That's exactly what I talk about in terms of grit. And my book actually talks about that as well. But what I can tell you is that there's no way I think I would ever even have in my mind that I'm not going to get promoted because I'm Black. I never even think that. I've seen it happen, but I'm not thinking that. But whatever they say and whatever they tell me, I challenge it. And what I say to you, I remember, before getting a partner in my first firm, they turned me down like 2 times and they didn't even consider me. And I'm like, man, I'm going to leave this firm. But I remember going to my office director and I said to him, hey, can you tell me what are the requirements of actually being a partner and what do you need to do? And he said, oh, maybe you should become a thought leader. You should write articles and speak at conferences. And I'm like, okay, that's okay. And that year I never written an article in my life. I wrote 6. I never spoke at a conference. I spoke at 7. The next year I doubled it down. And the next year I was made a partner. I didn't even know that they were going to make me a partner. But what I'm saying to you is that there's ways that you can navigate it. That the ways you can challenge the status quo. And nobody in any room that I go can or work in, I can tell you that. No. You might be smarter. But I'm trust me that I'm going to work harder than you every time. And so that's my winning formula. I always, there's always stuff that's going to challenge you. DEI and all those stuff, I'm passionate about it. Donald Trump said it doesn't exist, all sorts of stuff and everything. But listen, you still have to push to try to achieve whatever God's, it's God's will. And I think that, you just have to accept faith over fear. Always.
So, thank again, I think I'm expressing what a lot of people here are saying. Thank you so much for standing up and boldly telling such a powerful story. I think as Caribbean people, we need to hear that story more, stories like this more. I'm speaking as a proud Trinidadian who's lived in Jamaica for 25 plus years, made my way over to the United States. One of the things that you talked about as you were sharing with us today was that one Caribbean. Can you tell us a little bit more about your thoughts on that? Because I think there's tremendous power in us coming together, but we still can't seem to do it and do it right.
I know that. And also I talk about, I did engineering in Trinidad. So, I am urban. Yes. And, to be honest, before leaving Trinidad, I think I was baptized in Carnival. So, when I left school, I was like, oh man, what am I going to do? I can't go to Carnival again? That makes no sense. Like, what? But, to be truthful, I think that's something that's missing from us. And that's something that I always think that if we could work better together. But there's also external influences, pressure from the US and pressure from the first world, in terms of how they indoctrinate us. And it's a system. But I think we're doing much better than before. Our capital market, I go to Jamaica Stock Exchange conference to speak a number of times, with Oliver on the stage as well. But I see us Caribbean are coming together much more, and are trying to to really build together. And the hope that I have, is that we understand that we're always stronger together. And that's something that I'm passionate about. That's something that it doesn't matter. Like, even with me, championing DI in my industry, hey, I look out for my Caribbean people. That's just what I do. So that's just why, when I speak, I don't talk about Jamaica alone, because the Caribbean is such a great melting pot of great people, talented people, that I think if we can build together, there's no stronger, single nation than us.
One more, and then that will be the last.
So this is a question kind of feedback from the question she had earlier. When you had that experience in London with the woman shopping and going to in that moment, feel what we're talking about right now? Did you feel that was the situation, knowing that you're coming from a background where you haven't experienced racism? You feel like you were being, like it was racism at that time, in the moment, or is it in retrospect?
I didn't feel it at the moment. It's actually after, when I'm like thinking about it, I'm like, wow. And then, I had a boss, a white guy, who I confided in, actually said to him, and he said to me, he actually started to explain to me, and said, you're going to experience that. And it's unfortunate. So it's something that I know exists, but also it's going to understand that, it's not, everybody is not the same. And I have white people who are absolutely, were instrumental in my life, that are my great friends, and who have given me so much opportunity that I don't understand why and how they did it, but so it comes with the territory. Then you have people who are, whatever word they are, but but that's how it goes, and it flows. It's just, you just have to understand that, that doesn't define everybody. That's just something that we have to be sure kids. Yes, we can feel down, but there's still that, something that defines how we look at humanity.
I'm gonna just take the privilege and ask the last question, if that's all right with you. You're standing here in the first and only Pan-Caribbean Heritage Museum in the world. So, and what we know as Caribbean people is we're not afraid of work. So all of us or many of us, I'm gonna say, could be the hardest working person in the room. Many of us have that same kind of work ethic and dedication and what have you. You've talked about grit, but what else is there? Because if not everybody could go into the same types of situations that you were in and make it to the success that you have made it to. So aside from grit, aside from the hard work, what is the secret sauce you think that made you rise above everyone else to achieve the things that you have achieved?
You know, to be honest, I laid out some of it, but for me, the strongest thing that I have is my faith. That's the strongest thing I have. I'm telling you is that I for some reason I believe that I can make it. But I don't know why. But the situation is that, you know, growing up in a Christian home, having a praying mother that showed me that there's nothing. You know, even when the door is closed, you can figure your way out to open. Like I see that woman and like all I wanted to do was to make her proud because I'm like, man, like if she fought so much for me, I'm like, man, I know she would, and that's the thing about it. Like, I don't know, I said, and I said it before, she was my superhero. And I'm like, you know, having an armor, you know, around me. I have a father, and you know, King Banton can tell you about it. You know, he had an accident when I was 11, and you know, he still, you know, walks with a limp and everything. But my father let me feel like a superhero way before I understand my possibilities. I remember passing my common interest exam, which is, you know, PEP now, and went to, you know, we used to collect it somewhere, and he was there lifting me up in the air, walking me like, you know, all over the place and stuff and everything, you know, crowning me, you know, when I was 10 years old. Can you believe that's still in my head? I remember going over to my high school and he used to sell ice cream at 11 years old, and he's telling everybody, this is my son, and he's going to come and captain the football team, and he's going to be this and that and everything. Sometimes you put things out there and you believe that's what I believe. I became the captain of my football team. There are certain things that you put out there to your kids and everything, and you would know how amazing it is just to give them power. I have that. That's what I got. My community gave me it. Oh my God, I'm a hero for my community even before I could do anything. Because they said, oh, he's smart. Let's just embrace him. Let's try to be his parents as well, an extension of his home. They were my cheerleaders. When I used to play for Mannings, I used to have a whole stand that basically I used to have to go and salute them. And they would call my name and shout, Reagan, all sort of stuff. And that's Reagan. That's what they called me when I was 9 years old. Reagan, a former president of the country. I don't know. Was I born to be a leader? But somebody saw it when I was 9 years old and gave me that name. So for some reason, it was ordained. And I think that, you know, I don't ask a lot of questions. I just thank God for the position that he put me in, that I've succeeded and continue to succeed. And I can show everybody that comes behind that we all can be here. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Hamilton. Huh? Last brata. All right, we'll get the brata. We're just going to take one last one.
Thank you for your stories. You're clearly a born storyteller. Could you tell us a little bit more about the process of crafting those stories into a narrative for a book?
Well, that's on the second. And then your question.
So I guess as Caribbean, we've all felt the same thing, right? I came here at 9, so a little bit of a different perspective. But the real question to you is, based on coming here and gaining the understanding of America and being committed and willing to show Caribbean on a whole, how do you market it? Because all America is marketing. 9 years old, I arrived, and the one thing you didn't know is that when you come to America, I just walk and pick up the money and drop from tree, and I know I'm gonna see fuck.
How do you market it? put it in a book, become a bestseller, talk about it, do book tours, tell your kids, let your kids tell the story. That's legacy. The situation is that I never knew that I would be an author. I can tell you that. That's not something I dreamt about. But I took up my phone one day and went on Facebook Live because I've seen a lot of my peers and people in the community when I went back to Jamaica see little youths making money and they're buying 2 or 3 cars. And I'm like, man, you know, what if they invested in a property or, you know, invested in something that has a residual income? So I spoke 5 minutes about that. The next day, 6,000 views. I see messages, people saying that's the realest 5 minutes they've ever heard in their life. And I'm like, wow. And people want to hear affirmation. People want to hear, you know, inspirational story. And I set off something what I call the Ghetto Youth Bible series. And I did 10 similar videos that when I went to Jamaica, people from all angles were saying to me, oh, we sit down every week and we wait for your videos. And I'm like, wow, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. And then I got a call from Inboy for Profile. I grew up watching Profile. I'm like, whoa, I always wanted to be in that show. And Ian said, hey, I would love to bring you on Profile because, you know, we heard about the Ghetto Youth Bible series. Right? I went to Profile. I remember being interviewed and I was there. And halfway through the interview, Ian Boyd said to me, Garold, we can't do one interview. Are you okay for us to sit and actually shoot part 2 today, right away? Yeah. So maybe I'm the only person that could tell you that if you go and watch all the profiles that held on the same suit, there are only 22 people that did 2 weeks in a row. And I'm the only person that had the same suit on because he shot it on the same day. But the situation is that after he shot, he called me and he said, Garold, your story is going to change life. And I'm like, what? Okay. And I'm like, why my story? I didn't know that my story is different from anybody's story. I remember my social media was like 300 followers. In a week, it was 5,000 oversubscribed. I remember a kid sent me a message saying, hey, Mr. Hamilton, just like how your mother, you know, what your mother did for you and stuff and everything, my mother is doing the same and I'm going to stay up late and I'm going to study hard and do all this stuff. And I sat down and cried because I'm like, those are the person that I want. That's the inspiration that I want. And I remember Ian said to me, then you have to write. He gave me his publisher, Pelican Publisher. That's how I published my first book. Everything that I had in my 10 Ghetto Youth Bible series was actually converted to what I call the Ghetto Youth Bible and the 10 Commandments of Ghetto Youth Bible. That's how I started. That's how I wrote the book. And for some reason, vividly, I could remember. My mom said, how do you remember all the stuff from childhood? I don't know, but I do remember. And those are the stuff that I write down, all my challenges. And, you know, to be honest, I should tell you, like in terms of storytelling is one of the best attributes that you can have in business. The best. To articulate a change management structure, storytelling is key. It's everything. And I think that we people from the Caribbean are great at telling stories. Just sit down at the football field, go to a domino tournament, you know, go to a barbershop. That's what we do. So I think that every one of you have it in you. Write it down. You don't have to be the greatest author. There's copy editors, there's editors. There's AI now in terms of to help you craft your story. There's also the stuff that's even much more better than when I wrote my first book.
But I can tell you also, don't just write a normal book. Make it illustrative in terms of actionable. That's what I do. I have illustration to say these are the 10 points that you should think about. So when you're writing your story so that you can tell that story that someone else could follow in that footprint and someone else can learn from that story and put it into action to do and be whatever they want to be. Because the same principle is the same principle that you, the same footsteps that you step in is the same footstep that we need to do sometimes in order to get there. And I truly believe that we all have a story. We just need to tell it.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have been inspired again, truly inspired, just raise your hand right now. May I do my collection right now? No, amazing story. Let's give a big round of applause again for Dr. I reflected on something that, in terms of the magic elixir, when I presented first at the Jamaica Stock Exchange, it was our panelists. There was myself and two other persons on the panel. And Dr. Hamilton treated that exercise as if we had literally we won the lottery. We made a couple times, we went to every meeting, and I was like, whoa, it's not a big deal. And when I went on stage, I felt so prepared. And I have been subsequently to other presentations, and the moderators have not taken that care and deliberation. So I think one thing he left out is that everything he does, he gives of his best, and he does it with enthusiasm. And I think that's part of his big success. So, ladies and gentlemen, a part of this is where you're going to come and buy the books and take your pictures and ensure other persons support the work. But on behalf of the Consul General Lecture Series, we want to say a big thank you to you, to the example you have set. Our first national hero will be very proud. You agree with me? No, listen, I'm going to give you an acronym for Garvey's philosophy. Part of it, respect. R, remembrance of history. E, entrepreneurship. And as I go through, listen to his story and see you can mark it out. S, self-sufficiency. P, purpose. E, education, the importance of education. C, the importance of community. And T, the importance of our traditions. This is manifested right here. Respect is due. So before we go to buy the books and take our pictures, I know Khalib has her altar call moment for the island space. Is there one among us? All right, go ahead, Khalib.
All right, good evening, everyone. How are you? On the sound, thank you, thank you. Good evening, everyone. How you doing? All right, Mr. Hamilton has done a spectacular presentation. Thank you so much on behalf of Island Space for being here with us. I am one of the co-founders of the organization. Did Mandy ask how many people? Is it your first time here? Just show of hands. Oh, all right. Well, welcome to Island Space. As we've shared, we're the first and only. If you have not yet done your walk around the archive, the walls are a little bare now. We had an event over the weekend and many things came down, but typically these walls are full of art in here. If you look behind the walls over there behind you, there is an archive of the history of the Caribbean region. We are also arbiters of stories, all of these wonderful stories of the Caribbean and not just Jamaica. And we invite you to keep coming back here whenever you're in South Florida in Plantation. Please, before you leave here this evening, just take a walk around. And Mr. Hamilton, I'd love to give you a tour of the exhibit hall. I'm also gonna take a point of privilege and share with you that my mother, Clover Thompson, you see the people over here, Clover Thompson, passed away last year today. And so we named the exhibit hall after her, so it's very important to me that you go back there and look at it, please, and thank you very much. I typically will ask at the end of these presentations for donations. So if you've been here before, you know we do our cultural tithe, like you would do at church. We pass a bucket around and we ask for donations. But I'm actually going to level that up this evening because Mr. Hamilton has inspired me to reach for higher and more. Thank you so much for that. And I see a whole bunch of successful looking men across the back of the room there. So I see them trying to ignore me, but I know they can hear me. I'm gonna ask you for donations. Thank you. You may have heard that the current administration has defunded a lot of arts organizations. We were among those arts organizations that were defunded. We have a staff of 4 people. We do things like Reggae Genealogy and the Mango Festival and the Consul General's Distinguished Lecture Series and the Rum Cake and Black Cake Festival and hers and a whole bunch of events that many of you in South Florida know of and have enjoyed. We do panel discussions here. We will have the Anansi Children's Reading Festival this Saturday. We do so much for the community and we do it on a shoestring with a small staff of 4 people. It is still almost $500,000 that it takes to keep this place running, and we have been defunded to the tune of almost $100,000 this year. So we are asking everyone in the community to please do a membership with the museum. You can do as little as $10 a month. If you don't want to do it anymore, you can stop. Of course, we prefer $25 and $50 and $100 a month. Gentlemen in the suits in the back, hope you listen to me. But if you can do your membership with us, we would genuinely appreciate it. If you just want to do the tithe today, we accept that as well. But please, Island Space needs the support. All of the cultural organizations in the community that serve you need the support. So please, there's a table over there that says membership. Stephanie, can you just wave your hand? That's Stephanie over there. She has a little QR code. It's islandspacefl.org/membership. I am asking you to please take that step this afternoon and become a member at Island Space. Thank you so much. And of course, please buy Mr. Hamilton's book, support Caribbean unity, all of that. All right, thank you so much. Have a good evening.
And the book is actually 100% donated to my nonprofit organization, TR Foundation. So everything that we give goes straight to the youth of the Caribbean. So that's what we do. All right, before you go, this is my good friend who, if I did do his shameless plug, I can't talk to him about it. Now he has a sports bar called House of Flames in Jamaica, right at the foot of Jackson. Very good karaoke night, great food, all kind of good music, good vibes. When my father passed, we had just met and he volunteered and did a lot of the catering just on the basis of our friendship. And I'll never forget that, Sir Alan. And so I encourage you to support the House of Flames and support Island Space. And let us ensure that every book